Good evening and welcome to Tales of Lore, filled with nothing but guts and gore until you are screaming to me, no more, and...
It's my way of saying I'm doing a top 5 Halloween special. Yes, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Arrowfire. Welcome to a bit of a special themed My Top 5, as is the happy season of Halloween. So I thought I'd go through with you some of my top 5 scariest moments in Transformers. It's not really to say there has been that many scary moments, but there's been a couple of instances, pictures, frames, stills, or images burned into our mind over the years that make us think, whew, that's a bit sharp.
Top 5.
Number 5, Beast Wars, Tarantulas and Cheetor. Now this is early on in the Beast Wars series, and really you see Cheetor being a hothead, running off and getting himself into trouble. Well, what's quite scary in this instance is, as Cheetor runs off, he falls into the spider's lair, falls into Tarantulas' grasps and ends up in a web of trouble. Now this is where you see Tarantulas toying with Cheetor, and he actually says to him he's going to drain him of all his fluids till he's nothing but a husk, and he's going to be savouring on him until he goes into stasis lock, withers and dies. Even Cheetor calls him out and says to him, "I don't have any real blood, just mech fluid," to which Tarantulas replies, "All my filters will adjust, it's the act I enjoy more than the nourishment." And this is where you see, for what is still a 13, 14, 15-year-old aimed product, quite a sadistic side. He doesn't need to consume him. There's no fulfillment. There's no nutrition. It's enjoyment, perverse draining, and watching a fellow Transformer wither to nothing for no gain other than sadistic pleasure. It's quite a dark turn for what is considered a fairly light show. But we see the mad scientist does have a very dark side to him. Number 4, the 2007 Transformers movie, The Death Scene of Jazz. Now, death in Transformers, mutilation in Transformers isn't completely uncommon, but the manner and the swiftness and the brutality of this death is really quite something, and it is something that we still remember. So to picture the scene, Megatron has come out of his cryogenic status, he's joined the battlefield, he is huge, he is strong. Jazz, who is really got no fear, he's a bit of a hothead himself, tries to literally go up to Megatron and take him himself, and he says to him, "Do you want a piece of me?" To which Megatron replies, "No, I want two," and completely tears his spine and lower body apart, and you have two pieces of Jazz very brutally killed, probably one of the more brutal deaths we've seen in Transformers for some time at that point. And it's a case of he could have killed him, shot him, fatally wounded, but he was literally torn in half, insides dangling. It's quite strong for something that still tries to get young kids into the product. Okay, we don't exactly see a close-up shot, we don't hear the screams of Jazz, but yeah, quite a brutal execution. Number 3, the Generation 1 cartoon, the entire episode of Dark Awakening. Now, cast your minds back to when you watched this for the first time. Did you think this was a little bit different? Did you think this hit a bit harder? Yes, you did. I certainly did anyway. There's a lot in this episode that just feels a bit darker, a bit twisted. The fact that we see at one point what is supposed to be a zombie of Huffer, perhaps, or even Ironhide. There's this decaying, aged corpse that falls out of a cupboard. Optimus does return, spoiler, and for the entire episode looks completely battered, cracked, damaged. At no point has he ever been restored throughout this episode. He completely takes the mantle of leadership once more and does not rejuvenate, even to the end of the episode, becoming more and more damaged and quite visibly rough cut. His arm is missing in a fight with Rodimus, and it's just hanging off at threads and tears. And by the absolute end of the episode, you see an image that I will never forget the first time I saw it. Most of Optimus's face missing as he does the brave suicide attempt to make sure that the bomb does not go off and take out the entire Autobot fleet. The rest of the Autobots escape, and Optimus drives himself into extinction once again. But it's the manner throughout this whole episode, the zombie-like state, the robotic zombie, as we are often reminded at the hands of the Quintessons. There seems to be very much a decaying theme throughout this whole episode. Quite dark, but memorable, and a bittersweet one as well. Number 2, IDW Comics, the introduction of the Decepticon Justice Division, affectionately known as the DJD. And there's a few instances that we see them stretch their muscles, shall we say, and we hear tales of how they were Megatron's personal hit squad. For those of you who do not know, the Decepticon Justice Division were really made to track down any rogue Decepticons who fled the Decepticon cause, and it will be a form of going absent without leave and facing criminal justice, but in the most brutal way possible. And really by the end of it, they just became Megatron's personal hit squad. But what you do see in one particular instance of this was with Sky Shadow, or Black Shadow, and how he effectively went into business for himself against Decepticon or Megatron Command. And then the Decepticon Justice Division being sent after him, and there is a series of panels throughout the IDW comics of how he is very slowly executed at the hands of the Decepticon Justice Division, and how all 5 members take it in turns to use their speciality, be it fed into an industrial-sized blender, or having a face to wear that's full of pins, or even Tarn's special ability of talking someone to death, tone down his voice to such a pitch that it will match the beating of a Transformer's spark to the point that it can stop. Again, it was probably the most sadistic we've actually seen, and the IDW comics did go in for this sort of stuff. They did try to push boundaries because they knew the fan base was possibly a bit older than children, and what we saw with the execution of, say, the likes of Flywheels or Sky Shadow, we saw just how sadistic and how fearful we should be of the Decepticon Justice Division. And number 1, Marvel Comics, the fusion of Megatron and Ratchet. You knew it. Everyone had to know it, really. It's still an abomination of an image. I won't go into how they came fused at a molecular level. It's been out for some time. We probably know it by now. But the image we are left with to this day of mixture of limbs and eyes and mouths and arms, and it's a terrible image that still haunts us when you see it being shared on social media. You think, how on earth did they come up with that? And what on earth was the reaction at the time? To think that this is still the reaction now of what is still a terrifying image. The fact that you can look at them, they both look in pain. Through an image you see that it speaks volumes. One passage that really does speak to me in this, but before I get to that, you often see the sign that's written so badly by a fused Megatron and Ratchet that just says, "Help us." They are in pain. One passage later on in the comics where Optimus holds a gun to them to be a mercy killing, to take them out, and he says, "No, I cannot do it. This is not the Autobot way." Only to find this cohesive mind of Megatron and Ratchet pull back the gun and point it at their own head. They want to end the suffering. It's terrifying to think that this is what it would come to. They're no longer Autobot and Decepticons, leader of the Decepticons, a medic for the Autobots. They are this one entity that's suffering in conjoined pain, and they just want it to stop. Transformers has pushed boundaries of it before, maybe not as much as others, but this was nothing but torment, nothing but discomfort, and they just want it to end. Even 35, 40 years later, we are looking back at this and think, that's possibly still one of the most terrifying images in Transformers history. And there we go. That is my top 5 scariest moments in Transformers history. But what are yours? Have I left yours out? Do leave a note in the comments below. I'd love to know what your top 5 are, or whether you agree with my choices or have some choices of your own. But thanks for watching. Happy Halloween. I will see you